All right, guys, great to have you back. All right, so let's continue from where we stopped in the last video. So instead of using connection factory, okay, or should I just go back a little bit? Remember I mentioned I was actually basically speaking about conditionals in Spring, right? Where we looked at conditionals. If you did not get that, please look at the last video. It's pretty important before you can understand what we're speaking about now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come to this, let's just come to this part. I'm just going to create a package called default. Right, let's rename this. So default. All right, so in default I'm going to create okay, I didn't label this a package. Okay, I see that's why. Okay, let's delete this. So it has to be a package. So default, let's see, let me see now, why is this not created? I'm going to create something called default. Or is something available? All right, so I think it's available, so I'll just call it cache. So what I want to do is around cache. All right, so say we have cache. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create something called default cache. Default cache. So in default cache, I'll just probably just give it one single property. I'll just call it a property, and the property will be, I'll just call it string. I'll just say cache name. Cache name. All right, then with that being said, give it a constructor. I could just place a noargs constructor, basically add noargs, constructor, and yeah, I think that's with it, and add getter, right? So add noargs constructor and a getter. All right, that being said, so let's introduce it as a bean. So I'll come in here, I'm going to label this at default cache, call it default cache. Then I'll just leave it as a bean, not any conditional bean. I'll just say return new default cache. Now I'm going to come here and say a conditional on missing bean. Then I'll basically say I want if this guy is missing. Then let's create another one. I'm going to say custom cache one extends default cache. If custom cache one, then extend default cache, then I'll just give it one more property. I'll just call it maybe cache, let's say cache, let's just say props. Let's call it props. I'll just come in here and just say add noargs constructor and add all args constructor. All right, so and basically just give it add getter, right? I don't think I need that all args. Okay, so in this case, now if this is missing, right? If this is missing, I want you to create, let's create another one. I'll call it available cache or custom cache 2. Custom cache 2, right? We have custom cache 2. So what I'm gonna say, if this default cache is missing, I don't know if I should be extending this, but let's just quickly finish this. If this default cache is missing, right, I want you to give me custom cache 1. I'll call it custom cache 1. So SOUT, I'll just say custom cache 1, and I'll return new custom cache 1. Then I'll come in here and I'll say if this is a conditional on bean, if this bean is available, you see the difference now? This bean is available, then I want to return custom cache 2. Then I want custom cache 2 to be the one available. So custom cache 2. All right. So let's run this. Remember, this is a bean. This is available. Now we are looking for this. If it's not available, we bring. If it's not available, we bring in this. If it's available, bring in this. So let's run this. All right. So let's copy this. Let's copy custom cache 2. Is custom cache 2 available? Yes. Because custom cache 2 available. Why? Because this bean is available. What about custom cache 1? Custom cache 1 is not available. You see the difference, guys? See the difference? Because custom cache 2 is available, so because default cache is available, we're able to find custom cache 2, right? And because it is here, because it is not missing, this will not actually get injected. So the same way too, let's go ahead and comment this out. If we comment this out and run this again, let's look for custom cache 2. Custom cache 2, let's see if bean is actually available. Yes, it to be available. Reason being that this guy, remember I'm extending it, right? That was what I was asking earlier, if I should extend this part. That's what I was asking, because I knew this was going to pick it up. Because it's a type of default cache 2, it saw it. But however, you can see this is default cache 1. Custom cache 1 is available. So what I'm going to do, let's go to custom cache 2. We should not extend. We shouldn't extend this. So let's run this again. All right, so let's search. Let's search this part. Let's see custom cache 2. Let's see default cache. If default cache is available, yes, let's see this cache, custom cache 2. It's available. Let's see. Yeah, it's actually locating this part. Just a minute, guys. Okay, I can see this is still bringing it in, right? Reason being that if you look at it, I think the logic is actually failing. Reason being that, right, custom cache 2, we see custom cache 2 here. It's saying if this bin is available, and because this is not seeing this default class, it's injecting this in, and because it's injecting this in, this is basically seeing it as available. So what I would do, let's take this off. Don't let us extend any of them. Yeah, let's take this off. All right, so let's run this again. So let's look for this. All right, you see, it plays out well, right? So what happened earlier was that, so for those that did not understand what happened, I was saying if this bin is available. Meanwhile, custom cache 1 is also extending default cache rather. And because extend default cache, it makes it available, and this also basically runs because this is available. So now that both of them are not extending any of them, we can see that this only comes in. We can see that this only comes to play, right? Because this is missing, right? And that's why we have this. Now, if we go ahead and then bring this back in and run this again, and let's actually see the behavior. All right, let's just run this. All right, so let's search for it. Custom cache, you only see custom cache 2. I hope that basically clears things up, guys. So this is exactly how it works when you're working with a conditional property, a condition on missing bin, or a condition on bin. So this will check if a bin is available. If it's available, it injects it. This will check if a bin is missing. If a bin is missing, it basically injects it. So if you check most of your implementation, that's basically how most of these things basically works. All right, so there is also another called add condition on class, right? Add condition on class. So it means if a class is available, use this. If a class is not available, don't use this, right? In that case, let's explore. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do, so let's go in here, right, gosh, so let's create a class here, right? Let's look for a class to create. I'm just gonna create, okay, we have this class, right? So we can make use of this available class. All right, so let's go to app config. Now I'm gonna say all right, so let's come bin, and I'm gonna say just return a string, right? A string is fine. Then I'm gonna say testing conditional on class. All right, testing conditional on class. All right, so I'm going to come in here and then return the class that is available. I'm going to say class Linux available. All right, so in that case, what do you expect to bring here? Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to bring in a conditional. We're going to bring in a conditional on class. A conditional on class. Now, let's check a conditional on class. Now, you could see I can use it on a method and I can use it on class level. So you could basically place it on class level saying, if this class does not exist, don't bring in this entire configuration. So this is what I'm saying. I'm saying, you see all this configuration, I could say a condition on class. If a class is not available, I'll say don't bring it in at all. And the beautiful thing is, I could say the name, it's a string, right? So I could wire the class in all the way from here. I could say com.z.ebs.conditionals conditionals dot conditionals dot app. Let's see, conditionals dot. Did I put a factory here? Yes. Just pick something. I just want to pick something. Conditionals dot Linux condition. So what this is saying, you can see what this is saying is, if this class does not exist, don't bring in this entire configuration. That's exactly what it is saying. So it's very crucial for you guys to understand. And this means, and for this one is saying, if this class is not existing, don't bring in this. Only if this class is existing, bring in it. So I'm just going to bring in the same property here. So here, let's bring in for Mac. So I'm going to take this out. Take this, rather not take it out. And I'm going to say for Mac. For Mac. So this is going to be a name, because name will be what it will be looking for. How do I know? If we check name, it says the class's name that must be present. So the class name itself that must be present. All right. So first off, let's test the one on class on the method level. So if we run this, let me move this. Okay. All right. So now that this is done, let's check our logs. So let's check, is class Linux available? Let's check this. Oh, sorry guys, I didn't print this. So I'm going to say SOUT. So class Linux available. Let's just print in the same thing. All right. So let's check this out. Does it satisfy the condition? Yes, because this Linux class is available. I'm sure you're getting the logic now, guys. If I go here and put in something that does not exist, let's run this again. It will look for this class. If you cannot find it, we don't expect it to have this. So if we do this, as you can see, class Linux is not available. I hope this clears things up, guys. So now you know how you can use it. So it could be a case of you don't want a logic to run if a particular class is not available. Now, a typical use case could be a logger. If you're expecting to bring in, okay, you've written a custom code that you're using in different versions of Java and the likes, and you want it to be portable, you could say if the stream class is available, right, use all these features we've defined in this part. If it's not available, don't use it. So you could use it to actually customize your code. So I would like you guys to think wide, guys, right? So in a way for you guys to be able to use it. Let's say you have custom logic, and that custom logic is residing in a class, a util class. And that util class can only work, right? Can only work successfully if you are basically running on, let's say you have a particular class available. If it does, then this is your go-to to be able to inject it as a bin. If it does not work, then you don't have to inject it in. All right, so with this being said, let's leave this as it is. Now, let's comment this in. So we are saying if this one is not available, now what this immediately does is it takes away everything. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick this which is running on Mac and see after we run this if this is still available. So let's run this. So let's look for this. Can you see? Running on Mac is no longer available because all these classes have been disabled. Nothing is no longer available. I hope this super clears things up, guys. So this is exactly how you can use a condition on class. Now if I bring this back in, let me just bring this back in, right, to make it a big distinct. Say Mac condition, and I run this again, and I search for my Mac. Can you see? Hey, running on Mac. I hope this clears things up, guys. So this is how to use condition on class. This is how to use a condition on bin. Now note there is also missing class. All right, there is also missing class. Right, it's also missing class. So for you guys to know, so you can immediately understand what it means, right? So by using conditional class, just the opposite, right? So will be on missing class bin, right? So that's basically this, right? On missing class, right? I'm sure you guys understand it, Jay. So that's basically it. So in case you are concerned about where to find all this, you can do a command click. So if you're using IntelliJ, command click this, then go to this symbol. Look at this symbol, then click on this. You'll find everything, all the conditional on bin, conditional Boolean properties. So there's several ones you could basically use, but these are the conditionals that are basically available. The ones I touched are the ones that are the most important. Now let's see this in use, right? Let's see this in use. So I'm going to go ahead and close all this and just bring in a starter, and I'm going to bring in the JPA starter. So let's bring in JPA. So I'm bringing JPA, right? And I'll wait for it to load up, basically. So let's load this up. All right. So with that in, let's look for JPA. So I'll go in Spring Boot Starter, JPA. So let's look at JPA. Let's explore JPA. So if you look at JPA, let's look at this auto configuration. Can you see, guys? Does this start to make sense now? Right? It's saying this class should not run, or should run only when data source is available. It said this class should run only when JPA class is available. It said this class should run only when this is available, this is available. You see, guys, you see how it works now? So you see this spread across all the Spring Boot starters and how it works. So this is how auto configuration works in its core. So when you hear the auto magic of Spring Boot, this is exactly how it works. This is what they use in controlling it. It is well defined. And you can see we didn't touch this part, but you can understand what this means. This basically is saying if we have a property and the property is true on Boolean property, then we want you guys to run this. I hope this basically works. And one last thing I'd like you guys to know, remember I explained the concept of type and of target to you guys when we are creating our custom annotation, which is Z component. Remember I mentioned it to you. So remember it mentioned that if you have type, it means it can be used on a class. If you have method, it can be used on a method, right? Just a refresher. I'm sure with this clarifies things. So when using a library, right, and you're trying to see why it's not being injected in, you might probably want to explore why this is the way it is, right? With this, it gives you understanding, okay, this task only gets injected when this bin is available. That is why when you try to run a class, when you try to run, you're probably trying to run JPA, and you're trying to run JPA, and you basically placing, you're trying to run JPA, and you're basically using MySQL, and you don't define the properties for MySQL. This will flag it. You will see properties that have to do with MySQL. It expects that some properties, you set some properties for MySQL. So this is how it works in its entirety. So if you check all code, right, instead of running away from these guys, try to just look into, okay, what does this mean? Okay, conditional on missing bin. Okay, so it means, all right, this condition should kickstart if this bin is not available and this bin is not available. Here, oh, it's a method, it's method based. Okay, so this condition should run if this bin should be injected, rather. This bin should be injected when this is actually here. So here it talks about the configuration. This configuration should work or should be injected when all these are available, right? All these are available. And here it's saying this bin should be injected when this is actually available. I hope this basically sets the tone and gives us the clear concept or clear idea of how conditionals work. All right, with that, let's just run it one more time. I expect this to break. Yeah, it breaks because we just introduced JPA. So let's take it out. We didn't basically set up the properties, right? With that being said, let's run it one more time and let's see if things are good. All right, things are running solid. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.